All right, so today we're going to talk about ecological organization, and then we are going to jump into symbiosis. So, how do ecologists organize organisms and their environments? So, what you see up on the board, this is how it builds. So, we take a bunch of individuals, we put individuals together, they make up a population. We put a bunch of populations together, they make a community. Communities make an ecosystem, ecosystems make a biome, and then all of the biomes together make the biosphere. And this is something you should have seen before in earth science. So in order to understand relationships within the biosphere, ecologists ask questions about events and organisms that range in complexity from a single individual to the entire biosphere. Okay, so up here, this shows you how everything builds and comes together. So an individual is a single organism. So for example, a single tree frog, that's an individual. One tree frog is an individual. A population is a group of individuals that belong to the same species and they live in the same area. So an example would be all of the tree frogs in the rainforest. So one tree frog versus all of the tree frogs. Next, we have what is known as a community. A community is the collection of all the biotic factors in an area. And so these should be familiar terms. What does biotic mean? Alive, living, right? Versus abiotic, which is non-living, okay? So an example of a community would be all the frogs, worms, and plants that are in the rainforest. Okay, so this is the biotic factors. Then we move on to the ecosystem. This consists of all the biotic and abiotic factors in the area. So now we're combining all of the living and non-living things. So the frogs, worms, plants, water, sunlight, and soil nutrients in the rainforest. That would be an example of an ecosystem. And then last, we have the biosphere. And this is the portion of the earth in which all life exists. So we build. So we start small and we end large. So this takes us into community interactions. So when organisms live together in an ecological community, they are constantly interacting with one another. So these interactions that occur are what help shape the ecosystem that they actually live in. And then we have what is known as competition. So this occurs when organisms attempt to use an ecological resource in the same place at the same time. So we all know what a habitat is, right? What's a habitat? Where an animal lives. Perfect. And then a niche is what?
Oh, sure, it's group.
Their role, their job, right, in that habitat. So if certain organisms don't have certain niches, right, in their habitat, then they end up doing what? Competing, right? Because if they all do the same thing, eat the same thing, mate with the same, right, then there's going to be forced competition, okay? So up here you see an example, which are two wolves competing for food. Here's another, a lioness and hyenas that are competing for fresh food. Wildebeest, and they're competing for territory. Next is predation. So this occurs when one organism captures and feeds on another. So this is predator-prey. So the predator is the one that does the feeding, and the prey is the one that gets fed on. And then the last thing we're going to talk about today is symbiosis. And there are 3 types we will talk about. So symbiosis is a relationship in which 2 species live closely together. And there are 3: commensalism, mutualism, and parasitism. So the first is mutualism. And this is when both species benefit. Okay? So this is a relationship where both species benefit. A great example is a bee and a flower. Next is parasitism. Okay, this is when one benefits and the other organism is harmed. Okay, so an example of this would be a tick and a dog. Okay, so the tick is benefiting and the dog would be harmed. And then last is commensalism. And this is when one benefits, but nothing happens to the other one. So one is benefiting, but the other one isn't benefiting, nor is it being harmed. So great ones of these are like a bird. So you'll see pictures of these. You'll see this, like a shark and a remora. Right. Yes. Yep, that's a great one. Yep, you're gonna see that. I think actually might be one of the examples in your activity today. So here are some examples. So bees pollinate flowers, so the bees get food, and the flowers are better able to reproduce. So this would be considered what? Mutualism, okay? Because you have bees and flowers, they're both benefiting, so this would be mutualism. A tapeworm is living in a human stomach. The tapeworm benefits from eating all of the human's food, and the human begins to starve. What is it? Parasitism, okay? Because we got the tapeworm and the human. The tapeworm is obviously benefiting, and what's happening to the human? They're being harmed, so that's parasitism, okay? So here are some ways to remember it. So mutualism, both species are benefiting, so they're both happy. Commensalism, one's benefiting, but the other is not affected, okay? So one's happy and the other one's just in the middle. And then you have parasitism, where one benefits and one is being harmed. So this guy's happy and this one's not so happy, right? Okay. There's your barnacle and whale. So does anybody have any questions?
Yes.